the most effective way to utilize Raptor 1K primer and help turn your prints from this to this. It's all in today's video and it's coming up next. Alright, what's up everyone? Back at it again. It is DW Darkwing Dad. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about this guy right here, the Raptor 1K primer. Now obviously I did do a review video on this primer when it first came out. It was something I absolutely had to try. Today I want to dig in a little bit deeper and give you a step-by-step process that I use when using this product to give you the absolutely best results possible and save you the most time. With the help of a couple key components and some of the tips I have in this video for you, when you use this process, you're going to get great results day in and day out. With all that said and done, let's jump right into it and let me just show you how great this Raptor 1K works in an entire build. Let's go. The main reason this whole process with the Raptor 1K works so well is because you don't necessarily need to sand everything. Something like these earpieces here, printed pretty clean. There's some areas here where I'm going to give them just a light scuff sand. You know, for the most part, to help keep the definition, we're not really going to sand these too heavy. However, there's some areas on this Metro Cop mask here where that's going to take a little bit of effort. There's certain parts of every 3D print that just get a little bit more chewed up. You just get those areas that inevitably need a little bit more work. And we're going to go ahead and use a more heavy duty body filler because that's really going to fill it up a lot faster. There's no point in sitting there and spraying the Raptor and sanding it, spraying it and sanding it, spraying it and sanding it. We can put the Bondo plastic metal on, be able to sand it, it'll fill that in perfectly good, and then we can jump right to the Raptor 1K. All of these pieces here were printed at a 0.24 or a 0.2. They're all relatively nice, clean prints, and you know, if we don't sand them and just go right to the Raptor, it's gonna keep the definition and obviously speed up the whole process. So it's perfectly okay to do that. Using something like the Raptor 1K, these typically will have some sort of lacquer thinner or acetone, and what that's going to do is chemically etch the surface. It's going to allow it to bond, so you don't have to worry about any lifting or any adhesion issues. On this mask, all I'm going to do is fill the areas that need filling. I'm going to sand it down. We're going to spray all this with the Raptor 1K. So I'm going to get this set up, and let's go.
Can we just for one night let the stars decide where we belong?
All right, here is a look at the mask. Definitely helps speed up the process. You know, some of these areas here, you can do alternate methods like take a soldering iron. I like just kind of putting this on and, you know, just getting right to it. Probably use a combination of 80 in some of these areas here, and then I'll try to get some of it with the palm sander. 120, maybe 160. I don't want to go too aggressive. Try to keep this as crisp as possible. So while the front of the mask cures and dries, I went ahead and just did a 220 scuff sand. I did not sand this at all. So again, if you print these in a finer layer height, they will be ready for application of the 1K primer. I am doing this outside simply because I don't overstress when I'm doing the initial layer. Once we get moving on to final coats of primers and paints, obviously that's going to be done inside the work shed. We're going to have the paint tent and everything. What I'm going to do, throw my mask on here, get the application of Raptor 1K. This typically does have to sit for about 60 minutes. We'll have that other front mask to sand, so we want to do this first, that way we don't have dead time. We have one thing drying, then we're going to have another thing drying. We can get sanding, and while we're sanding that down, this will dry. It'll all make sense once it comes together. Once the Bondo plastic metal cured, I went ahead and did a nice combo sanding, both with by hand and with my power sander, wiped it down and started applying the Raptor 1K. You want to apply the 1K a little bit heavier, and you also notice that my nozzle is a little bit closer. You don't want it too far away. If you have it too far away, it's going to go on kind of dry, almost a little bit rough. We want this a nice wet, thicker coat. I recommend repositioning the model after your first coat just so you can make sure all the areas are nicely covered, that Raptor's building up and filling in everything you need to. You can see it did a great job here. It's starting to fill everything in. So we're going to put this off to the side, let it cure, and check out the other pieces. Looking at the pieces here, again, this was with no sanding, and we just did a nice coat of the Raptor 1K. Obviously with these, we're gonna have to kind of orientate them in a different position here. I'm just gonna hit these with 220. So once we sand it and then get another coat, it'll work a little bit on the top. And then this guy here, obviously a lot of intricate areas, is what we're gonna take some 220 and 320, fold it over, try to get nice and clean on all those edges. And then one last coat of the Raptor and maybe some filler primer should do the rest. So I'm gonna get sanding these and give you an update here shortly. this is all cleaned up pretty good. What I'm gonna do now is I'm going to do another coat of Raptor 1K. Despite all these parts that I've done, I haven't even used close to half the bottle, so there is still quite a bit of product left. It's at $16.99, and then you can actually get it online with 20% off. I'm getting this stuff for around 13 bucks a can. It's really great because it is more like a spray putty. And part of this video is to show efficiency. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna coat these with the Raptor. While we spray these, we're gonna sand this. That way there's no dead time. So by the time I'm done with that, I can come to this, go right into sanding that. So I'm gonna get some coats on this, and then we're gonna start sanding the back of the helmet here, and then also start working on the front here a little bit more. So here now applying the last coat of the Raptor on the front breather pieces and ear pieces. Again, you can put this stuff on a little bit heavier. This is not a traditional filler primer. It's more like a spray putty. If you tried this method with a filler primer, you're gonna end up getting runs, you're gonna get craters, you're gonna get pinholes, that solvent pop, because filler primers just, they're not meant to be put on like that. So this stuff you can put on thick, you can see it's filling in. There's no pinholes, there's no solvent pop, there's no runs. It's a really, really great technique. So control and patience is the best. After you let those sit and cure, they'll be good to go. And here now attacking the back piece, getting in all those nooks and crannies, all those intricate areas. And the beauty of this product is you can attack most of it, which is 220, 320, and 400. After going through, getting it nice and smooth, let's take a look at it. And this is the first sand. So remember, we never did an initial sand on this. Already started filling in pretty good, but it is gonna need another coat on and then repeat the process and put it on a little bit heavier in some of these corners. And it will fill in pretty good. So I'm gonna finish wiping this guy down, get a second coat on her and see how it looks. Doing the second coat of the Raptor 1K, what I like to do is basically do half of it facing up, so that way I can kind of spray it more heavier on this top section so it'll fill in a little bit. And then once that's dry, I will flip it and I'll just hang it up and get the bottom jaw here. That way it allows the Raptor to really kind of build up. Filler primers really aren't meant to be put on very heavy, whereas this stuff, you don't want to cake it on too heavy, but you can definitely put it on a little bit thicker and it'll help fill in. Spray it from the ear all the way to the chin and over, give it a sand, and then we should be able to move on to filler primer. Here that these are now dry and they are looking pretty good. I'm gonna try to work on that seam just a little bit more. Got a couple layer lines here I'm gonna try to work out, but really all I'm gonna do is I'm going to sand these by hand with some 320, and then I'm going to grab some Bondo filler primer, put about 2 coats on, let it sit for 20 minutes, and then sand it again with 400. And that should get rid of most of these layer lines and imperfections. First, I'm gonna start sanding these, show you how they look. I was originally going to use Bondo filler primer. I am not going to because there's a lot of issues with getting Bondo filler primer. Cannot get a hold of it, so I'm going to use the more conventional upol filler primer. This stuff is great, very similar to Bondo filler primer, and it's pretty much at any AutoZone within the United States. So should be able to get to doing a final sand on these and taking a look at them in about 20-25 minutes. So I'm going to get some coats on these and then we'll see how they look. So after our coat with the upol filler primer, these are looking pretty good. I could go through and get some sandpaper and try to get some of these other crevices here, but not bad, you know, considering how intricate and detailed this piece is. And understand too, when you put a couple coats of paint on, and if you're doing clear coat, it will help hide those a little bit. The goal is to try to get them, you know, looking close to this, or, you know, depending on your expectations, better. So, you know, I'm trying to give you an up close view, you know, from back here, you know, it looks awesome, but I always kind of judge everything and look at it from, you know, 6 inches out or even closer. So, you know, me being me, I'm going to go through and clean some of these up. Again, I may try to, I didn't really sand this inner piece, you know, all that much, but overall, you know, really for just doing, what are we on, 2 rounds of sanding on this, look pretty good. And a lot of it is attested to, you know, the combination of that Raptor 1K, some good filler primer there by upol. So going to start moving on to working on this back piece here. So this is the second coat of Raptor. And it filled this in really good. Still see here, there are some impurities in these crevices. Very detailed piece. Add some upol filler primer on here, so we're using all upol product. I'm going to sand this whole thing with 220 and 320. We're hopefully on to our last stage of sanding here and our final coat of filler primer, so I'll get these guys sanded and see how they look. Due to the intricacy of this back piece, I decided to switch things up, and don't be afraid to try this. So this is after our last coat of Raptor 1K. I went ahead and put upol filler primer right on top of it, let it cured, and then sanded it. See, the upol filler primer and the Raptor 1K are two different colors, so I knew if I put the upol filler primer on top of it and then sanded it, it would actually bring the defects to the top and actually show me that I'm eliminating them. This is a trick a lot of professional painters use with black base, and we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end, but using these two combinations here of the Raptor 1K and the upol filler primer, two different colors, they're both going to fill every time you put them on. They sand very easy, and you can see here that it's bringing all my defects and just furthermore ensuring me that I'm getting rid of all of the layer lines and all of the impurities in that back helmet there. So after a 400 grit sand and verifying that everything is nice and smooth and ready to go, we put our last coat of the upol filler primer on there and help fill in, again, any sanding scratches or anything that I might have missed when doing my final sand. After that dried, a quick inspection here showing just how great this combination works here. Nice and detailed. We kept the definition all while still filling in all the layer lines. This thing is looking great, and it's ready for base coat. And now moving on to the front piece. No, I did not forget about it. This has said it's 60 minutes and it is ready to sand. So what I'm going to do with the front is mimic the same exact process that I did with the back. So we went ahead and sanded it, did a second coat of the Raptor 1K, and with the help of my buddy Sheldon here, we're going to get this thing nice and smooth and awesome. Did the second coat of Raptor 1K, jumped right into the upol filler primer, went ahead and sanded that, did the final coat of upol, and this is what you're looking at right here. You can see that we've kept a ton of the definition. It's nice and clean. It's gotten rid of a majority of the layer lines and the imperfections. This thing's looking really great. So after a quick wipe down, we're ready to get this thing into the paint tent and start the final coats. And here's an important tip I have for you when using this method or any other method when you're trying to finish your 3D prints. So we moved our pieces inside the spray tent, and we're going to start doing our black base. So the black base is going to serve multiple purposes here. One, we're weathering this, so this is going to give us the effect that there's been chips and damage done to the mask, which is really going to fit the whole character of this. But when you add a black base, immediately the defects are going to pop out. So you can see that when I was showing you that in the gray, you really couldn't see all these, but the second you put any kind of black base on, it is going to show every single defect. So if you were doing something like, you know, an Iron Man or a Darth Vader, something that needs to be super smooth, I highly recommend doing a matte or satin base to really show out all those defects. Of course, then you can go ahead and add putty or filler primer or do additional sanding, whatever you want to do to get rid of those defects. But you could not see hardly any of this on the gray, and it is all very visible. So it's okay that that's on there. It fits the part for this particular helmet, but I wanted to show you guys just what a black base can do. So on this helmet, once the black base was completely dry, I went ahead and used some masking fluid and started adding some weathering and damage, chips and things like that. Once my top coat sat for about 30 to 45 minutes, I went ahead and peeled the masking fluid off, and it just resembled chips and battle damage and things like that. After an acrylic wash and some dry brushing, this is what we're left with here. So really awesome piece. The blue eyes, they resemble the same character in the video game, and this might be my favorite Metro Cop to date. Came out really awesome, and the fact that we only used 2 to 3 products and it filled in so many layer lines, gave this piece so much character. Really awesome finished piece. I hope you guys like it. So now that we went over all that, let's wrap this video up and give you my final thoughts.
Alright guys, well there you have it. There is a look at the Raptor 1K beginning to end. This is not just like a normal filler primer. It's more like a spray putty. It does have a higher fill ability. Obviously with those higher filling abilities does come with a little bit longer of a dry and a cure time. But in the video, you know, I tried to stress kind of prioritizing. Don't sand everything at once. Start with one piece, spray the Raptor, work on another piece, that way you don't have any dead time. And then of course we did also use the upol filler primer, and that's just something more or less to, I guess, kind of save a little bit of money. Some people are kind of iffy on the fence on this being $16.99. Like I said, you can get it online with a 20% coupon. Something like a $9.99 filler primer you want to use just towards the end to really help conserve and save that upol 1K for your heavy filling, and then really just use your filler primer towards the end to get rid of the minor defects, the sanding scratches and things like that that might be left over. You've seen from this helmet, it was able to keep all the definition. It still eliminated the layer lines. Overall, it gave a great end result. I want to thank you guys for taking your time out of the day and watching the video. If you liked it, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you have questions on anything, I know there is a little bit of jumping around from one part to another. Questions on anything, guys, go ahead and drop me a comment. You know I'll hit you back. And then, of course, if you do enjoy all things 3D printing, cosplay, Marvel, Funko Pops, DIY, all the stuff we're doing on the channel, go ahead and click the subscribe button. I'm still getting caught up. If you guys seen any of my last video, you know I had a couple personal issues. It was a recent commission, and I figured I would just go ahead and show you guys. This stuff really is a great process. Really nice and easy. Shake it, spray it, sand your other stuff, get it knocked out, good to go. You follow this video, you follow my tips, you'll get great results every time. Well, that's pretty much it for this video and my recent Metro Cop helmet build. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to get back to a couple other projects I have lined up. The next build on deck is we're going to be doing MF Doom using some Dolphin 1K, and we're going to be spraying Duralumin on this guy. So make sure you click the subscribe button and come back and see me. Until then, it's DW out. Later.